Everyone hits a bump in the road. What do you do with it? Be inspired as we explore the ways people experience, navigate, and manage the ups and downs and twists and turns in this road trip called life. Welcome to another episode of Bump in the Road. The basic podcast is always free. We also have a premium subscription called Bump 2 that lets you listen in on extended behind-the-scenes conversations with our guests. Check it out at www.bumpintheroad.us. Today, Elizabeth Rhyno's life is about joy, but it wasn't always so. After moving from Canada to the U.S., her family encountered numerous problems, and Elizabeth found herself lost and depressed. Until one day she heard a prompt. "Joy let loose," it said. "Joy let loose?" she asked. "I'm not feeling joyful at all." But that prompt would propel her forward, out of her depression and into a purposeful, joyful, and intentional life. This is a story about authenticity and consciously crafting the life you want and finding joy along the way. Please welcome Elizabeth Rhyno to Bump in the Road. Welcome to Bump in the Road. If you would, tell us your story.
So glad to be here, Pat. Thanks for the invitation. My name's Elizabeth, and I've had a few bumps in the road, but one that was especially pivotal, I think, in my journey happened about 7 years ago. My husband and I and 3 kids had moved quite a bit. We're Canadian. We grew up, our kids were all born in Canada, and we grew up on the East Coast. For jobs and different things, we had moved several times within Canada and then over the border and into the US, back into Canada. And this was a second move into the United States, where we were moving from New Brunswick, Canada, down to Indianapolis, Indiana. And so I think based on our history of moving and knowing that we all had been resilient and every move had been a good move, we anticipated the same this time. So we packed everything up, we sold our house, we were waiting on immigration papers, and when everything was approved, we were ready to go. And we made that move. And it happened in the late summer, just as school was going to be starting for the kids. So we thought that was great because they weren't jumping in mid-season or anything. They were going to be arriving new, along with other kids who were arriving new. And we got here. We had some difficulty with enrollment in school. And so actually our youngest, who was, I think, 12 at the time, maybe 11 or 12. She couldn't even get into the school because of overcrowding. And so we enrolled her in a virtual school. But our middle son, who was going into 10th grade, we got him into a wonderful, enormous high school nearby that had a lot of positives about it. Our oldest son was doing a gap year. He had already graduated high school. And so for him, it was kind of seamless. Anyway, the long story short, I was thrown into this position of being all of a sudden a homeschool or a virtual school mom, which I had not anticipated, never done that before. And I was also in the position with immigration laws where I couldn't work yet. So I had lost my sense of identity and purpose that I had found through my previous job. And I was thrown into this season of not knowing what I was doing as a virtual school mom. And it really only took about a week and a half, 2 weeks for that middle son who had gotten into this incredible high school to literally have a breakdown. And we couldn't figure out why. He wasn't telling us why, but he literally had a breakdown, and we had to withdraw him from that incredible school that we were all looking forward to. And so all of a sudden, I had 2 kids virtual schooling. I'm trying to learn how to do it. I don't know anybody here yet. I don't have a job to focus on or to give me a sense of who I am. And so I was trying to figure it all out all at the same time on the ground. And I really myself plummeted into depression. I had incredible sense of like grief and loss and purposelessness, but I'm trying to be, up and positive and helpful to my kids. And I felt inauthentic all the time because I was trying to be so hopeful for them, but I literally had zero hope for myself. So it really spiraled me into a season of just feeling like I didn't know who I was. I didn't know why I was here. And I really didn't have a sense that we were even going to be able to make it up out of this mess that we were in. I was angry. I was resentful, all of the things. I was like, why did we move here? Why did we make this decision? And it just was spilling out of me, or I could feel it wanting to spill out of me. I was trying to be really careful for it not to spill out, but I was just in this season of anger, grief, purposelessness, and really trying to navigate that bump. And it was really honestly in that season where I felt so unsure that all of a sudden I got this honestly this one phrase. The phrase is joy let loose. It was like this phrase just dropped into my heart. And I believe in God. I believe that God created us for a purpose. At that point, I couldn't see what it was, but I do believe that it was him that gave me this phrase, joy let loose. And honestly, I was mad about it. I was like, what the heck? What am I supposed to do with that? Because I am not joyful. I don't know even how to find joy. I don't feel it. Um, I'm not even sure I want it. I just want to be mad about it, everything. But I had this phrase and I was like, joy, what am I supposed to do with that? So I just started to do all that I knew to do was to start to read about joy. Like, what is it? Where does it come from? How can I cultivate it? That kind of stuff. And then write about it. I can write. I knew that. And so I just launched a blog and it was called Joy Let Loose. And I just started to write about joy. And I had to read because I wasn't feeling it myself. It wasn't even my personal experience. I was just researching and reading. I was checking out the Bible. I was reading other authors. I was talking to people. And I just started writing about joy. And it was as I was doing that and learning about it that I began to start to have just tiny little glimpses of it in my own, like I felt it a little bit sometimes here and there, but not everywhere. And so, anyway, it was enough though that it kept me on that path because I wanted it. I wanted to feel joyful. And what I noticed was that as I was writing on this blog and people were reading my blog, they were sending me private messages, they were commenting on my posts and that kind of stuff. And I was interacting with so many women who just felt the same way that I did. They felt like they didn't know who they were. They felt like they hadn't been happy in years. They felt overwhelmed by motherhood and all the expectations on them. It just was I just realized that my experience was not unique. It was very common. And that kind of gave me, I think, more grit to do something more with it and to really understand, what is it that can pull us up out of a place like that? Because I don't believe that's what we were made for. I believe we were made to thrive and flourish. I don't believe we were made to wallow and be depressed. It's how are we going to get out of this place? And so really it's, this last 7 years has been um, rewriting my story, like writing a new story of who I am. But that all comes from discovering what was I made for and what was the impact I was made to have on people, what's the legacy I've been created to build, and then just getting really intentional about it. I use the phrase sometimes, I don't want to build an accidental legacy. I think a lot of people do that. They're not intentional with how they walk out their days. And so by the time they die, they've built a legacy they didn't really mean to build. I don't want to do that. I've discovered that I want the legacy of my life to be that I've left people more joyful. I have let joy loose. I have helped people to uncover who they were made to be and start to be super intentional about living it so that they are also building an intentional legacy. Because I found that when I walk in my purpose, I radiate joy. Like it is a natural spillover now, but it took me, several years to unlock that, uncover it, and then start to pursue it and be really on purpose. So I've graduated. I still write, but I guess how I walk out my purpose has been evolving. So I do write, but I also went ahead and got certified to be a life coach. And as I've been coaching people, I've kind of honed in a little bit more on specifically life transformation. And that transformation is from purposelessness to purposeful, joylessness to joyful. And so I've learned how to help women now kind of make that a similar transition and transformation to become who they really were made to become. And so that's even still evolving. How I walk out my purpose is still evolving, from one-on-one coaching to more group coaching. And I'm currently getting ready to start launching Joy Let Loose retreats, where people come away for a certain period of time with the intention of getting coaching and one-on-one time and group time, and also solitude and just a health and wellness reset, so that they can begin that journey or deepen that journey of walking with joy. So my purpose is to help other women experience joy while because they are uncovering their purpose. But how my purpose is unfolding in its methodology is still evolving. And I'm super excited about the retreats. It fits my makeup. It fits what I love. It fits how I recharge. And to be able to then turn around and offer that to some other women who are overwhelmed and exhausted and never have time by themselves, and, just experience this purposelessness. I can't wait. It's still on the horizon. It's coming. I'm working on them. I'm getting them on the calendar now. But I'm really, really excited about it and feeling super fired up. So the bump in the road really was the launch pad and the pivot point, for me to truly begin to experience joy, because I'm starting to walk in my everything that I've been made for.
I think joy is so powerful, but finding it sometimes is hard. Is it just joy that can kind of pull us out of our funk, or are there other things that we can turn to focus on and, try to move into a more intentional and positive way of life?
Yeah. Well, honestly, a big part of my journey as alongside of this has been in some just mental health counseling. I've had a therapist now for almost 2 years. I actually switched partway through, from one therapist to another. But acknowledging, and this was hard for me. I mean, I'm 48 now. And so let's say I started this therapy journey when I was probably 46. It took a lot for me to be humble enough to acknowledge that I needed help. So I had, I had been walking through depression and stuff, without it for a few years, dealing with it in other ways that were helpful. But I had a hard time getting to the place where I recognized I needed to acknowledge that I needed help with my mental health. And when I started that, at first I wasn't even super open. Like I was guarded. I wasn't letting my therapist in really. I was kind of spinning my wheels. I know she knew that. I know she knew that, but she was gentle and trying to help me to, just get over myself and be open so that she could help me. But I would say in the last 6 months, getting into even some therapies like EMDR, which has then helped me to resolve and work through trauma from many years ago, has been a huge pivot point in helping me to then grow in freedom. because I don't think I even realized that some of the things I had experienced as a teenager were traumatic. I mean, they were bad memories. I knew that, but I didn't really understand the depth of the hurt or the depth of the uh, I don't even know the right word, just the hold that they still had on me. And so when I switched to a different therapist who does EMDR therapy, and she started to walk me through that process, and all of a sudden I'm able to now revisit those traumatic experiences without the same sense of guilt or shame or anger. Even I'm more objective about them now. I realize how much freedom that I didn't even know that I needed from those things in my past. And that is also helping me to walk now in a life that is safe, where I'm not experiencing trauma. It's enabling me to walk just with confidence and with vulnerability, with openness, and with a whole lot of hope. So I feel like unlocking purpose, pursuing joy, pursuing freedom from traumatic things in my past, acknowledging that things in my past were traumatic, like even learning that. All of this has kind of been a collision of experiences and intentional action that is now helping me to really be me, really be who I was made to be. And then that enables me then to turn around and help other women to start to walk in that same direction too.
What would you explain what EMDR is?
Yeah, it's oh shoot, I should know what the acronym is, and I can't even think of what it is. But it's basically a form of therapy, and I think different therapists approach it in different ways. But the way my therapist approaches it, we do it virtually. You can do it also in person. We do it virtually, and what it is I see a blank screen, like I'm only seeing a screen with color on it, and there's a dot that goes back and forth and back and forth pretty slowly across it. And while it does that, I'm hearing a sound that mirrors it. So my left ear, and then my right ear, and then my left ear, and then my right ear. And honestly, that to me, I'll be honest, when she explained it to me, I basically said that's dumb. And I'm not exactly sure what that's going to do, but I'll go ahead and trust you because I've hired you to be my therapist. And she'll basically she'll basically say, well, let's take some time to revisit this incident. So she basically tells me something we've already talked about. It's an incident that happened when I was, let's say, 17. We're going to go back there, and I want you to think about that. Notice things about it. And then I'll go into this session. I can't see her face. I can literally just see the dot and hear the sounds. And there's something that happens within your mind that frees it up. I noticed that my mind gets really quiet, which is a little bit unusual for me because my mind is always on the go. My mind gets really quiet, and I focus specifically on that one thing. And then your mind just kind of naturally, organically moves through thoughts, memories. You notice feelings in your body that correspond to those thoughts. Um, and so she'll kind of leave me there for a few minutes and just sort of, she'll observe. She can see me, she'll observe what I'm doing. She can notice by my body language if I'm having a difficult feeling or thought, and then she'll ask me a little question about it, and then she'll give me space again to kind of process. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about it. And I can't say 100% I understand what is happening, but I can say 100% it's super freeing to get there, because now there are situations from my past that she and I have done EMDR about that that now when I think about them, I don't have the sense of guilt or anger or pain or shame that used to always be attached to those memories. I'm free from that. And so now I'm just objective. It's gone, it's over, and it doesn't have the same hold on me that it used to. I don't 100% understand how it works. I can just tell you that it works.
No, it's amazing. I've been through some similar things, and you find once you, for me, I'll speak only for myself, that once you go
Mm-hmm.
back and feel what happened in that incident, it's about feeling it
Mm-hmm.
and understanding what emotions it generated and how they've stuck with you all these years.
Yeah.
And particularly with childhood memories, when you go back and you realize that you created a story around these feelings.
Yes.
And once you see that it's just a story, you can rewrite it.
That's right.
And it's astonishing the energy that that releases within your body.
Yeah, because I feel like we do store those undealt with emotions in various places in our bodies. And so, without maybe even realizing it, we might have chronic pain, or we might have just this trigger that all of a sudden something unrelated happens. It triggers something in our body, which then floods us with all of the pain that's associated with something completely different from our past because that's been stored and undealt with. It's fascinating to me how intricately linked our physical bodies are with our emotions. It's amazing to me. And so learning to uncover where those things are stored and giving yourself, like you said, giving yourself permission to feel them again, and then to talk to that young version of yourself, help her know, this was wrong. This shouldn't have happened. The fact that you felt hurt, of course you felt hurt. That is a natural response, and now it's time to release it, feel it, and let it out rather than stuff it down and pretend like it didn't happen. It's very freeing, and it helps you to not just like stuff it and forget it, but move through it and heal from it, and it be done. That's just incredible.
I find it fascinating. And I think it can almost become a bit of a game. Now, it's not a fun game all the time because some of these feelings really hurt.
Yeah, for sure.
But once you realize there is kind of a methodology to strip away this pain and
Yeah.
to get rid of this pain that resides in your body and gets triggered, it's amazing. I think you almost want to go on that journey because you realize on the other side of the pain is so much joy.
So much joy. Exactly. I was hesitant when I, like I said, when I started therapy, I was really hesitant just to be open at all. When I switched therapists and she wanted to do EMDR, I was really hesitant because I was like, I don't know I didn't know what would happen. I wasn't sure what the experience would be like. But I was afraid that it was going to let her into these deep places that I was afraid to go back to. But after the very first session, I totally agree with what you just said. I had such a sense of freedom that I was like, I can't wait for the next one. Like, even though I knew that that's probably going to bring me into some other difficult place, the sense of healing and hope that was on the other side really then was an invitation to, let's do this again, and let's just keep doing this until we, work through all of whatever's there.
And I think when you're willing to start facing those issues within yourself, now you have a shot at really living an authentic life because you're
Right.
discovering, maybe for the first time, who you really are, what you
Who
really
you really
like.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because our perception, our thinking, it's all impacted by our past experiences. And so if those past experiences have told us lies about who we are, then we've been walking with a false belief about who we really are. And so once our perspective becomes in line with the truth, and we are healed from believing those false things about who we are, or what was our fault, or this happened because of me, or whatever. Once we're freed from that, then we really can uncover who was I actually made to be, and we can find out who we are, partly by focusing on, what are the things that actually energize us, what are the things that we actually just love to do, and we would do it all day long if we could. It's starting to just give ourselves permission to realize that those things are true indicators of what we were made for. Also, I guess one of the things I've discovered, partly through, becoming a life coach, partly through going through the counseling and the therapy and stuff, also have discovered that a lot of that story that we lived through, even the stuff that now we're needing therapy for, a lot of that story even has prepared us for who we are set out to help. And so the crap that I've lived through, or you've lived through, or anybody's had to experience and heal from, even that gross stuff, even the hard stuff or the painful stuff, can be used for good, and can become fuel to help us to turn around and help other people who might experience something similar. So my story will speak very uniquely, because of my unique gifts, skills, things I'm passionate about, and my unique story. It will speak uniquely to certain people, and yours would speak uniquely to other people. We're shaped for a purpose, and so if we can harness even the hard stuff and let it fuel the things that we love and we're really good at, we're going to help a whole lot more people.
Well, it comes down, I think, to having an internal orientation rather than an external orientation.
Mm.
But everything in our life is very externally oriented. It's materialistic. It's,
Oh yeah,
where do you live? What do you wear? Da 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 da.
yeah,
And none of that really defines us.
right,
I mean, it's a real massive shift in terms of the way you view the world to start looking within. And it's not a
yeah.
shift that our society really supports in any way.
No, and I think that a lot of what you're talking about, the external stuff, really are band-aids. They're what we're looking for to try to make us feel better, because we have the internal struggle, or we have the pain or the difficulty, or just even the doubts about, what's this life about. So we start to slap on band-aids with money, or just, reputation, or, possessions, that kind of stuff. They don't make us feel better. They don't make us better. And so
Achievement's
until
another
we,
big one. Achievement is
oh,
another one that our
absolutely.
society loves, but it doesn't
Oh,
address
yeah.
what you really need.
No, that's absolutely true. And I tried that one a lot. I was like always going to be, even as a kid, I was always going to be the best at whatever. I was always going to be the fastest, the smartest, the tallest, like all the things I was always going to be. And none of those achievements, even if I did, I didn't achieve them all, but even if I did, none of those turned out to be my true identity, and none of those turned out to bring me joy either. It just was something that would, a checklist, or sit on a shelf, but it didn't give me any sense of real true purpose or joy.
When you hit that bump, when any of us hit that bump,
Mm,
you're just, I call it mired in the muck. I mean, life is just awful. You can't see beyond, 2 feet in front of you. You don't
yeah,
have a sense of purpose or future or anything.
yeah.
How, how do you start to move out of that? I personally think that you have to introduce energy into the equation. It doesn't matter
Hmm.
where you go.
Hmm.
Your path will sort itself out, but you have to bring some fresh energy into the equation, and joy does that.
Yeah,
But
that's true. It does.
what else can you say to people that can help them start moving through this muck?
I guess it is important to cultivate in yourself a sense of belief that things don't have to remain how they are. Um, because hope, belief, are motivators to help you move your feet. And so, what I feel like you're saying is it's really easy to stand still or sit down. Um, but there is a requirement on us to stand up and take a step. And as we take our steps, that's when we begin to, uncover the purpose for the next step and that kind of stuff. It really doesn't happen when we're sitting still. So for me, like I said, I was sad, I was angry, I was resentful, I was all the negative things you can name. And I had this phrase, joy let loose. I had a choice. I could have just been like, well, that's a load of bull. I'm not joyful. Therefore, I'm just going to sit here and just wallow in how I am. Or I could take a step and say, well, what does that mean? I could just get curious, even just a little bit, and ask a question and then ask another question and then take a step forward. It was really, I feel like the Lord, prompted me gave me that courage or that tenacity maybe to take those steps, because I think in my own strength, I would have just sat down. But so I'm thankful that I had that, but I had to do the work. I had to start reading about joy. I had to start asking questions. I had to start talking to people who were actually joyful, who, rather than being resentful of them, like, I'm really depressed, you're joyful. I could have just been mad about that. And instead I was like, how did you get to be so happy? What is it that makes you so joyful? Just having conversations. Every time I moved my feet and every time I took a step forward, it was like it was it was becoming more pointed or streamlined or defined. But also it was giving me, like, it was coming behind me and pushing me a little bit further, a little bit further. It was giving me the desire and the momentum to move forward. So I guess I don't know the specific answer to your question other than to say, take the step, like, let yourself be curious, ask the questions, and take a step forward. Don't sit down, stand up and move your feet.
Curiosity is so important. I think just the act of being, I think you should adopt that in terms of your day-to-day living. Be curious about
Yeah,
something,
right.
even if it's just what you're making for dinner, or if it's a different path that you can drive, but
Yeah.
introduce that curiosity, because you never know when it's going to open a really fascinating door.
Yeah, absolutely. I say it with my kids who are now, all adults, but I do use that phrase quite a bit. And I practice it. Even it's funny you said that, take a different path. I have been a very uh, ritualistic. I don't know if that's the right word. Like, I eat the same thing for breakfast every day. You know what I mean? Like, I have things that I just always do. And so part of getting curious for me was literally getting in the car and going in a different direction. Okay, I know I have to go the same place that I went yesterday. Let me try to get there a different way without my GPS. Let me see if I can figure this out. And like, I actually have personally done activities like that just to help myself become more flexible, more open, and less rigid. I think getting curious about even the thoughts, like the thought we have tens of thousands of thoughts every day, and the majority of them are negative. Um, there are specific statistics about that I can't remember, but we can get curious about the thoughts. Like, if I go downstairs after this interview and I go to the kitchen and I'm hungry and I reach for something maybe not healthy, and my thought is, ugh, you're such a whatever, fill in the blank. Ugh, you're always so fill in the blank. Get curious about that. Where did that thought come from? Is that actually true? am I always so? And get curious about that. Where did it come from? Is it true? Why are you allowing it to be true? Or can you change your thought? Well, actually, no, I'm a proactive whatever. You can reshape your own thinking. It takes time, practice, intentionality, but getting curious about those thoughts that we have because they come at us. A lot of times we're not in control of them, they just show up. We can take control of them, get curious about them, and reframe and reshape them if they're not helpful to us.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that's incredibly powerful. I know I find this EMDR really interesting in the way it
Mm-hmm.
allows you to calm your mind and, focus on a particular topic. For
Yeah.
me, I got into meditation, and the quiet and stillness of meditation gave me a contrast to my busy mind. So all
Yes.
of a sudden, I could observe my thoughts.
Right.
And when
Isn't
you
that
start
incredible?
observing your thoughts, you realize, I don't think I want to think this.
Yeah, right. Where did that come from? I don't like
Yeah.
it.
Well, and where did it come from? You can usually pinpoint that too. And you
Yes.
realize how we are all a bundle of beliefs that have been imposed on us by a million
Hmm.
different people and incidents throughout our lives. And
So
you
true.
start asking, what am I choosing?
Right.
I,
That's
I
right.
think the
Is
idea
this
of,
who I want to be?
yeah, no, I think the idea of living intentionally is really powerful. But
Hmm.
what are some of the things you have to face if you're going to set out to have an intentional life? What do you have to do to get there?
Well, um, I mean, there's some things that are super practical. I think a lot of us, especially moms, more than just moms, but I think especially busy moms, for instance, their day-to-day schedule is done to them a lot of the time. And a lot of the time, I don't think we realize that it doesn't have to be that way. I think that I have discovered that for myself, um, I can actually choose how I'm going to structure my day, what I'm going to fill it with. I have learned it's actually okay to say no to things, and not to just be a yes woman and take on all of the things that everybody else thinks that I need to do or should do or they want me to do. Um, if I'm going to, if I want to be an intentional person about building the life that I want to live and the legacy that I want to leave behind, I can even get intentional about how I'm going to shape my day, shape my week, shape my month, that kind of stuff by what I'm going to say yes to and what I'm going to say no to. And so saying no becomes a health move. It becomes like a purpose move. And then I've become free to not even feel guilty about it. So that's one thing. Just being really cognizant about what you're filling your time with. Also, what are you filling your mind up with? What are the things you're watching? What are the things you're listening to? Who are the influences that you're allowing in? I mean, our world is so noisy, like so noisy now, and it's like we have a constant sense of um, like just noise and just confusion and conflicting voices, always on the go in our mind. We can say no to those things too. We can turn off the TV. We can shift the kinds of music, like the attitudes and uh, the language. The kinds of stuff that we're filling ourselves up with. We can shift that, and we can create a sense of calm, a sense of peace with those things, so that we're not feeling like we're just fighting noise all the time. Um, I I would say too, and this isn't necessarily easy, but we also have the opportunity to choose who we surround ourselves with, who we spend most of our time with. If we want to be purposeful, if we want to be joyful people, then it's probably best to surround ourselves with people who are intentional and people who are joyful and who don't spend all of their time complaining or arguing or that kind of stuff. And sometimes we have people we have to spend time with who are difficult, and that's okay. But who do we spend the majority of our time with? We have a choice about that, and it really can impact and influence us. We've always told our kids that. Some people say you're the sum total of the three people you spend the most time with. I don't know if that's 100% true, but I certainly see that it is powerful. If I spend a lot of time around somebody who complains all the time, I'm prone to complain more. But if I spend a lot of time with someone who's just super thankful, it rubs off on me and I become a more aware and grateful person. And so if we want to be intentionally joyful, then let's get around joyful people.
And I think joyful is different than positivity. Positivity is something that is a cloak you can wear where everything's
Yes.
okay and fine. But
Yes.
joyful has an energy to it that is really genuine and you can feel
Yes.
it.
Yes. I agree with that. And it doesn't really depend on your circumstance. I think positivity, like you said, is a cloak. Joy is kind of, it bubbles up from the inside out, no matter what's going on around you. And I think I experienced this the most um, powerfully in 2020. I mean, we all had a hard time in 2020 with a lot of things. One of the additional things for me at the time was my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and she lived in Canada still. And so we were here in the US. She was in Canada. We were in the midst of a pandemic that made travel over the border very difficult. Um, but I got my intentional pants on, and I was like, I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to get there, and did all the things that needed to happen in order to get there. And, was able to be with her for her last 4 months of life. And in that, I learned joy by watching her because she was going through such an intensely painful illness, um, which was not responding to treatment. And so it was evident that it wasn't working and she wasn't going to make it. And she radiated joy. So despite that pain, despite the prognosis, um, despite how every single day it was just getting harder to function, she just was the kind of person who every nurse who came in left better. Everyone who came in left feeling more encouraged than when they arrived because she was speaking gratitude all the time. She was just constantly um, asking about their kids and about their life and how were they doing. Like, she was so outward focused. It just shaped me to recognize that joy doesn't exist in good. Joy doesn't happen because your circumstances are good. Joy comes from the inside and spills its way out, but it lets loose because you've cultivated it. So she had cultivated joy. She had practiced gratitude in the healthy parts of her life. And so when she was in these last 4 months of intense pain and a terminal diagnosis, she was able to function as a joy giver. And so I also discovered the strength of it in myself. Like the Bible says that the joy of the Lord is our strength. And I found that even though my sister and I and my dad were walking this really hard road with our mom, his wife, I felt like I had this sense of hope and this sense of joy to be able to stay above the line of depression and the line of despair. Of course, we were sad. We were really sad. There were a lot of tears, and grief is real. But when joy undergirds grief, it becomes something way more beautiful and manageable, and you can continue to let joy out all the way. So all the way even through her death. And then in those days after, as we were grieving the loss and she wasn't there anymore, I just had this pervasive sense of joy. And so I'm so thankful. Honestly, I feel like in my own season of despair a few years before that, when I got that phrase, joy let loose, I now see I had that to pursue it, to be ready when my mom was diagnosed, and then when I was going to be walking with her through the end of her life. If I hadn't have pursued joy, if I hadn't have done the work, taken the steps, done the reading, had the conversations, and cultivated my own joy, I don't know how I would have handled that season. I feel like it would have been way different with a lot more despair. So grief looks different when you cultivate joy. You're ready for it, and you're able to see the beauty that's still there, and to celebrate her life rather than to be lost in despair that her life is over.
What will be your legacy?
When I'm gone, I want people to say, Elizabeth was an encourager. Elizabeth sparked me to be the best version of myself. Elizabeth helped me to have hope and joy and just a real sense of peace about being who I am. Like, I want to leave people better, and I want to help them know who they are, and I want to help them to thrive in joy.
Thank you for listening. I hope you'll support this podcast by becoming a Bump 2 subscriber. Buy us a cup of coffee. It's your support that makes this podcast and website possible. I hope you found something in today's podcast that inspires you along your own life's path, because sometimes a bump in the road is actually a portal into a more conscious and meaningful life.